Hey squad, how you doing out there today? Well, it's time for another build video. We're right here on Squad Central. So guys, I'm going to talk about the legendary game-changing Clapton Coil. That's right, it's one of the best performing coils, semi-basic coils out there that you can possibly learn how to do. I'm going to show you guys two different methods, one of which is the freehand method, which in my opinion is the best method to learn at first. Before you look at the second method, I'm going to show you guys the swivel method. In my opinion, learning how to do it freehand is going to be more beneficial to you long term down the road in your building journey. So Clapton is very influential. I believe the reason why they named it the Clapton is because it looks like a guitar string. But we'll dive down to the build mats, and I'm going to show you guys the tools we're going to use today for today's build tutorial. So I'm going to have a little toot on my brand new Admiral that I picked up. I've got the dead rabbit sitting on top of it. This thing performs incredibly well, so very, very happy with this. See you on the mat. Okay, squad. Here we are on the build mat. So we're going to talk about some of the tools we're going to be using today. So we have of course our wire for starters. For Clapton, you're going to need two different gauges of wire. These are the two that I first started with, a 26 gauge Canthal for the core and a 32 gauge for the outer wrap. The smaller the wire, the more crevices you get, but for the sake of filming and to show you where I started, I find these two combined make for a tasty vape, and they're rather easy to work with. So we also have wire snippers here. I've got a couple of these little gizmos that I like, clamps I like to use for my coils, a couple coil jigs. Swivels we'll use for part 2 of this build tutorial, so I can show you the swivel method. To anchor your swivels, you're going to need something. So I use a vise. I have a 3-inch vise I picked up from a hardware store. An essential tool for this build, your drill. You're going to need some pliers, some scissors to cut your cotton, a couple different types of tweezers, ceramic tipped and ones for your cotton. In this particular case, I'll need a screwdriver for my RDA. We're going to be building on the Cosmonaut RDA. It's a postless deck. It's quite nice, I like it, and for safety, an ohm reader. And of course, cotton for wicking. Most of this video will be filmed on FaceTime, so we're going to flop you back over to my lovely mug and go from there. Okay squad, so first step I said I'd show you the freehand method. Like I said, in my opinion, you need to learn this method before you do anything with swivels. It's your choice, obviously, but I'd like to get started with that. That's how I learned anyways, all freehand stuff. It took me a good year before I bothered to get a vise, so. Okay. So we'll start with our core wire. For this build, it's essential that you straighten your wire first. So we'll get ourselves a good, I don't know, well, we'll call it about 10 inches or so. Probably sufficient. 10 inches to a foot for 2 coils. Pretty close to that anyways. I'm a little overkill, but I like to have more rather than less. So you want to straighten your wire out. So put that in the middle of your drill. See my videos on wire straightening, so I'm not going to get too in depth with that. Use your pliers, clamp down on the other end of the wire, and give this guy a spin. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's about it. Nice straight wire. Remove it from your drill. I typically will cut off the end I held with the pliers just to clean it up. It's not going to be any good to you. So take your wire. I recommend doing it this way. Take your wire and put a little bend in it like that. Okay. That's going to go in between the teeth in the chuck of your drill. It's also going to allow you something to anchor your Clapton wire to your outer wrap wire. So now this is where it gets a little funny. You use your 32 gauge wire in this particular case, or whichever higher gauge wire you'd like, and it's going to be essentially, it's going to wrap all the way around this core wire. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow for greater surface area for the juice and whatnot to get trapped into. So it's going to allow for greater flavor and clouds and all that stuff. So what I do when I freehand, and this is not necessarily the best way, and it has created some snags for me in the past, is I'll take off, you know, quite a bit of wire. Give it maybe a bit of a stretch as you're doing this. It does tend to coil up on itself. You're going to be careful. It's just what I do. Pull it right off the spool and just have it draped down beside me, and cross your fingers that it doesn't get tangled up. It's not the best way to do it, obviously, but in most cases that's what I do. So snip it. Now you're going to want to take, I'm going to switch you over to a different camera shot here so you can see me do this. But you're going to take this little bit of wire, and it's going to go around that little wire that's poking up at the top here that we bent earlier. So we'll get to that right away. So hang on, I'll get you right. Okay, everybody. Here's a little bit of a better angle. So this wire here that we snipped, the 32 gauge wire, we're going to wrap it directly around here as just kind of like an anchor. See how I'm doing that? So I've put my drill into a vise, by the way, just to hold it up so it's a little bit better angle for you guys. So once it's anchored, just give it a little turn like this, just to get it around that core wire. Okay? So what I'll typically do is I'll grab onto the wire with my hand like this and just get her started. So you want to not hold the core yet, support it. And you want to hold the Clapton wire, the wrap wire. It's going to be in between your hands like that. So it's going to run in between your hands. And then you're just going to simply just take it and start slowly. So if you can see, nice and close here. So there you go, squad. There's a nice little macro shot of what's going on. So you see those little wires are all touching. So you're basically coiling a wire around a core wire there. So give this a little. And that's what you're going for. Essentially, that's what the entire wire is going to look like right there. So you need to practice, in my opinion, with the freehand method just to get your Claptons to look just like that. It's going to go all the way down. They'll naturally sort of coil beside each other and keep it nice and tight. But if you move your hand just a little bit, it'll change how the wire looks. You want your wire to be, you know, pointed down, basically. You don't want it to be pointed back like this, or what's going to happen, I'll show you, is it's going to fold back up on itself just like that. So if that happens to you, reverse your drill. Claptons are very forgiving. And it falls right back into place. Just make sure when you start your wire, you're pulling down on it and go slowly just to get that going again. See? And it's going to be all butter from there. So I will show you guys how to do this right away. We'll show a few shots and we'll go from there.
You say I'm spending my money on other women, taking money from
There you go, squad. That's what we're going for right there. That is a Clapton coil. All those wrap wires are touching perfectly, evenly spaced all the way down the wire. That's what you're going for. So there's things called space Claptons in which you have an even amount of space in between, but for your basic Clapton, that's what you want. And that would be the freehand method gave you those results. So I've gone ahead and set myself up. I've got my vise over here with my swivels, and I got my drill sitting over here, and the 32 gauge is ready to rock and roll on the 26 gauge core. So the difference here really is how you're doing it. You're going to hold the spool of wire in whatever hand you feel more comfortable with, in my case left hand, and then you're going to fire the drill with your right hand. I guess depends on what you feel more comfortable with. I'll be making this Clapton counterclockwise, same way I made the other one. That's how I feel most comfortable Claptoning. You want to hold your spool of wire back, we'll call it 8 or so inches away from the core. That way it kind of allows the Clapton wire to auto correct itself while it's Claptoning around the core wire. To note as well, you're going to be holding this Clapton wire about at a 90-degree angle, which you're going to see in the up close shot in just a few seconds. So I'll take you up close and personal to the action. Okay, so as you can see, we're set up, ready to go. Move the camera around a bit here so you can see. I'm going to be clapping this guy right there. It'll be about a 90-degree angle when it's all said and done. So I'll put the camera back down. So really, that's about it. You're gonna, same as before. Make sure this guy's not in the way. That's really about it. So we'll see if we can get a few different angles for you here so you can watch all nice and up close and personal.
How many times must I tell you, baby? How many bridges I've got to cross? How many times must I explain myself? Or I can talk to the boys. Or I can talk to the boys. How many times must I say I love you before you finally understand? Won't you be my forever woman? I'll try to be your forever man. Try to be your forever man.
So there you go, squad. That's the swivel method. To be honest with you, I fucking hate doing Claptons on the swivel. I think it's more hassle than anything else. At the beginning over here, I kind of buggered it up a little bit. I find that for me personally, the way because I've been doing freehand for so long, I find there's more work involved in doing the swivel for just a Clapton. But it depends on what you want to do. So this isn't for me to be saying one is better than the other. But for me personally, freehand is the way to go, and I still strongly suggest you learn that over top of the swivel, because you know I've had issues where if you're pulling too hard on your wrap wire, the the core wire will snap directly from the chuck of the drill, and then you got to reset, and your outer wrap can fall off, and it's just a whole lot of hassle when you can just zing on by with your hand doing it freestyle. So whatever you want to do, try them both. Maybe one you'll be really good at, maybe the other you'll be like, nah, forget it. But for a single wire, freehand is the way to go for me. But once again, my opinion. So let's get down to some coil building, and I'll show you guys how to whip these puppies together. I'll show you a couple side-by-side shots too of what they look like. The freehand one ultimately is going to be better. There's some flaws and spacing issues on the swivel method, but essentially that's just how it is. So alright, squad, so I'll try to zoom in here a little bit. So there's my two wires side by side. This is the beginning of the wire. So you can see the one on the right is the freehand one, and the one on the left where that big giant spacing issue is, that's the swivel. So it took a little bit more to get them going, I guess, but for the most part it's pretty consistent all the way down. Sorry, my finger was just in the way there. So not too many issues. They're both almost identical. So end result is relatively the same. Just depends on which one you prefer to do. So all right, so let's twist these guys up. So what I'll typically do with my Claptons once I've done Claptoning them, I'm gonna chop off this little bit of extra I don't need, and I'll take my pliers here, and so when I'm wrapping it, it doesn't uncoil. I'll bend the end like this. So I'll take it and just bend my end of my wire like this, crimp it, so now it's less unlikely to unravel when I'm putting pressure on it when I'm wrapping it into a coil. So I'll do the same thing for this end. Here's the end that was in the chuck of the drill. Snip that sucker off like so, and once again crimp this end and twist it. Okay, so there we go. Now we're going to turn these into some coils. Yeah, I got my coil jig here. You're going to make these guys 3mm coils, so I'm going to cut this in half just so it doesn't whack the camera. So once again, cut it in half, crimp it, crimp this other one. Okay, so like everything else, wrap it towards yourself. And we'll do I don't know, 6-7 wraps, something like that. Try to keep them nice and close, side by side. So there's 6, 7. Hell, we'll do 8 wrap Claptons. The ohm kind of high, but that's alright. It's not a big deal. So there you go. We'll clean them up a bit once we get them into the, mount them into the RDA. So there's your 2 coils, guys. Pretty easy to make them, and they are naturally, because of the wire combination I use, they're not springy, so I'm not actually going to have to use these guys today. There's no point. As you can see, they sit pretty flush. You know, these coils are going to be delicious. They're going to, all of the little crevices and stuff in there produced by the outer wrap on there, it's going to trap all that juice. It makes for supreme wicking capabilities. This is a game changer, folks. You know, you can Clapton almost anything you can think of. So it's just about adding more layers and textures, so places for that juice to get trapped in, and makes for a really tasty vape. So let's get them all loaded into the RDA.
someone waiting by your side. You've been running, hiding much too long. You know it's just your foolish mind. Hey, love, got me on my knees, love, begging, darling, please, love. Darling, won't you ease my worry mind? Tried to give you consolation. Your old man let you down. Like a fool, I fell in love with you. You turned my whole world upside down. Hey, love, got me on my knees, hey, love, begging, darling, please, hey, love. Darling, won't you ease my worried mind? Make the best of the situation before I finally go insane. Please don't say you'll never find your grave. Tell me all my love today. Hey, love, got me on my knees, hey, love, begging, darling, please, hey, love. Darling, won't you ease my worried mind? Hey, love, got me on my knees, hey, love, begging, darling, please, hey, love. Darling, won't you ease my worried mind? Got me on my knees, Layla, begging, darling, please, Layla. Darling, won't you ease my world?
Alright, squad, so as you can see from the up close videos there, lots and lots of crevices for the juice to flow into and makes for a pretty tasty build. It's not too warm. Ohms are sitting at a nice 0.54 once I put it onto the Boom Squad mod, so let's check out some clouds. Clouds for days, what can I say? So, hope you enjoyed the build video. Looking forward to seeing all the Clapton builds out there you guys put up. So if you have any questions, please leave them below, and thanks for tuning in. Stay cloudy.